Hello and welcome to the VEST webinar series. I'm John Forster, your moderator for today's webinar session. And today we will show you how to customize a symbol library in the HyDraw Library Manager, then upload to use in creating hydraulic schematics on a web browser. This webinar will last approximately 30 minutes, and you'll be able to submit questions or comments at any time during the webinar. So just post to the questions section located within your webinar control panel. And questions may be answered as they're posted, or we'll try to address them in the last few minutes of the webinar as well. So note today's session is being recorded and that the audio is muted for all attendees. If you experience any technical issues though, please use the chat window to alert our support staff. And this webinar the link to the replay will be sent afterwards, so remember that. So it's my pleasure now to introduce our speaker for today's webinar session, Frank Newsome. Frank is one of VEST's diagramming product owners who's responsible for scope and delivery of the HydroCAD product line. So Frank, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Thanks.
Alrighty, thanks John. Thanks everybody for joining today's webinar. So today we'll be taking a look at the HyDraw Library Manager mostly. While we start here, I'll kind of give a little bit of an overview over my symbols that you'll see here. So I have gone through, and what I did was I created basically a smaller subset of a library. And so we have kind of a process that we can basically purge the library of all the symbols. And then what I did was I used our handy dandy update symbol library, and I pulled in a couple of basic symbols for my sales engineers. Things like a basic pump symbol, maybe the basic electric motor, or an adjustable relief valve. And so that way I have a library for them that they can use and use in the cloud, and then it can be handed off to my design engineers. So if we come in here, if we take a look at, say, a pump symbol, what we're going to start with today is just kind of how the library is structured a little bit. And so when I right click on this symbol, you'll notice there's this edit component type. So every symbol is tied to a component type. In this case, it's pump fixed single. And every component type lists the properties for that symbol. So if I actually come into our component types section up here in the top right, all of the component types are listed for the entire library. And you can actually see when I click on, we're going to be focusing on today the directional control valve. If I click on this, all of the model properties are actually listed right here. So the first thing you'll want to do when you're building your library, you're going to want to come through your component types, and you're going to want to make sure that each component type that you want specified is here and it's listed. Now, the reason that the properties are set at a component type level is because everything that you're going to see for an accumulator, you're not going to see for maybe an electric motor, or you're not going to see for a filter. So the properties are going to change based on what's applicable. So if there's anything that's missing in here, of course, you can use the new function and you can add a new component type. I'm just going to kind of work on our surface mounted directional control valve today. And I'm going to focus on our model properties right here. So I've gone through and I've kind of skinnied it down a little bit, but I do know that the pressure loss is not something that my sales engineers are really going to focus on. So I'll just kind of maybe get rid of that one using the delete option. And there is probably one other thing in here that I'm noticing that they probably would like to know, and that is stock information. So if I use this little paper option, it allows me to add a new property. And so the entire list of properties from within our library is pulled up. So I can look through, and these are alphabetical, so I'll just go and I'll see if there's a stock option. And I'm not seeing a stock option. So I can select add new, and I can just add it while I'm going through here. And this pulls up all of our component properties within the library. It's the same list, and it just kind of tabulates it a little bit better. So I can use this new option, and I can say stock, and we'll say it's a number, and we'll just leave it as unit list. And we can save that and select OK. And now we can come in to our list of properties here and make sure that stock is checked. We select OK, and that's added to our list of model properties. So every time that one of my sales engineers pulls in a solenoid operated surface mounted directional control valve, the stock will now be a field that is available to be filled in. Or if they pull in a component from the library, it'll be filled in if that component has that information. So we're going to go ahead and save this. And so I've kind of written down kind of our steps here, just for a little bit of a brief overview. So what we've done so far, we want to make sure that all of our property types are defined. So we try to make them as specific as possible, just because, like I said, things that are applicable to a heat exchanger are not applicable to a pump. So that type of thing. And we also specify between things like line mounted, surface mounted, because sometimes there's going to be maybe a cavity or a footprint or an interface that maybe you want to call out within there. And then you're also going to want to define your properties for each component type. Now you could do this using this component type section. You could see every property and you can go one by one in here. You also can come back here, go to our model properties. In our model properties, you can also do it kind of a backwards way. So if I come into something like the cost, I can actually see the component types that's assigned to. So in this case, it's pretty much assigned to everything. That's just because that one's a very generic field. But if we do something like a cylinder mount, I would expect that this one's only linked to a hydraulic cylinder. Yep. So there's a couple different ways that you could go through and you could do that. So then you could go in and you would build your symbols. I've already kind of done that, so we're not going to really focus on that as much, and we're going to focus more on the metadata. So when it comes to your metadata, if I go into the model data view, this is going to list every single component that is listed within my library. So I could create a new one from scratch using this new option, and I'm going to select a component type. And let's say that I want to add that directional control valve. And it's going to pull in those properties that we had specified. So we could add, say, a D1VW001 C, and it's going to ask for a model family, D1VW. And we could say it's a directional control valve, and it's a Parker valve. And I know that it's a D03 off the top of my head. So go in here, D03. And there's a bunch of other options, and I can fill them in manually, and then I can hit save, and it's going to add this to the bottom of the list. Now, if I ever want to, let's say there is a specific model code, let's say it has V for a voltage call out, and then I can fill in, let's say it's 220. These are just hypothetical numbers. I do actually have the data sheet up, so we'll actually kind of go through this in a second, but this is just kind of a hypothetical for now. So let's say that I've kind of come in and I've changed some things, and I want to add this as a model rather than overwriting what I already have in here. I could come in here and I could do a save as, and it's going to add a second entry, and it's going to preserve that first one. So it's very easy to build off of just kind of this base model and then quickly build a bunch of models on top of that. Now, the problem with this is when I come in here, you'll notice that there's no symbol that's actually linked to the model. So I'll have to come in here, and as a separate step, I'll have to actually link it to, let's say, this model. And I can select OK. And now when I do a search, this symbol will actually come up if I search for D1VW001C. What's a little bit more effective, rather than manually entering everything into the library manager, is actually using Excel. So you'll notice that we have this export to Excel. We also have an import function. And I'm actually going to show you how you can import, and you can actually link all in one step rather than doing that manually, creating everything, and then going back and linking everything. It gets a little tedious, a little cumbersome. So we're actually going to open up our Excel sheet here. And what we're going to do is each column is going to be a property. So I'm going to type out the first 4 here. And then I'm going to highlight these actually in red, because these are mandatory. So whenever you do an import, these 4 will actually need to be within your data sheet or within your Excel sheet. So every time that you do want to do an import, just make sure you have these. It will tell you if you don't have them, so just a note. But we can also do our other properties. So do rated flow, rated pressure, do our cavity, footprint, interface. It's making them red. And we could do things like our voltage, our seal type, so on and so forth. And so what this actually allows me to do is I can actually work on multiple things, and I can fill in a ton of different models. So for example, I know that the D1VW field, that model family field, is going to be applicable to all of the models that I'm going to add here. So I can just drag this down, and in basically a flick of the wrist, I have 15 fields filled out, and I know Parker is going to be my manufacturer. So it's very easy to just come in here and fill out one field that's going to be pretty much redundant for all of the fields within like a model family. So surface mounted directional control valve. Okay, so now we have D1VW001, and I actually do have our sheet open over here, right here. And so as I go through here, I'm going to try to find pretty much those fields that are common. So I'm going to be working on pretty much this spool type for the most part. And so I know that it's D1V and it's W because we're working with the solenoid, and I want to work with the spool type. So D1VW001. And then the style is also C. So we're all pretty much working on these double solenoided spring centered. So I can actually add this C here at the end. And this is going to be where I pretty much have my basis. This is where I'm going to start from. Now, what I notice here is that we have 2 more fields to fill in. So what I'm going to want to do is I've counted however many solenoid voltages are here. There's about 15 different ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter, let's say, the N for the seal, and I'm going to make 15 different copies. And then I'm going to create a 16th one so that I can create the second seal, so that I can make another 15 copies. And then make the edit to this one, and we'll add an E for the last set of 15. So now I kind of have my starter point, and what I'll have to do is I'll have to come in here and I'll select, A, D, G, oops, J, K, and this is where it gets a little tedious, but in the end, it's a little bit more fast to upload this and import all of this rather than entering it manually. Oops. So now I've pretty much got these completely configured. What I'll need to do is, I know for all of these fields, everything is applicable for all of the configurations. So I could drag these down. The rated flow is going to be 22 gallons per minute, and our rated pressure is 5,000 PSI. And again, this is the same model family. So these are applicable to all of our different models. And it's a DO3 valve for all of these. Use copy cells. Now the voltage is what changes, so we would have to come in here in 25/50 VAC. We would have to enter this each time. Now I'm not gonna continue to do this because I actually have this already filled out, and we have a limited time here. So I want to make this as beneficial as possible for you guys. So that is just something to note. But one thing that I do kind of like to do, especially when working in Excel, is I utilize those functions that maybe we don't have in the library manager. that allows me to do kind of a large edit here. So I could come down here and I can copy these and I can actually paste them over my V entries here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this replace function. So now I have the D1VW001 and I have a C. And what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to replace those with D1VW001V. And I'm going to do a find all. And I have to be a little careful here. I have to make sure that I'm replacing the actual values. So I'll just do a find all and I'll do an individual replacement. And it's going to change that C over to a V. And it's going to allow me to really quickly just kind of enter all of this information faster than what I could do within the actual library manager. Looks like it forgot this one. So now I have all my V's and I can actually come down here and I can do it for my E's as well. Oops. And I could do that replace. So now I have pretty much all of the model code information filled in, and I would have to come in and I would do the voltage. And the great thing about the voltage is when I'm done with entering all of these, I could just do a copy paste and it would be applicable because I've went in order based on the voltage and I've used the same order over here. Now the seal type is going to be that right here, that second to last option. So we have a nitrile and that's going to be applicable for our 15 here. And then we have fluorocarbon. Again, applicable to the next 15. And EPU available for the last ones. So once we've filled this out, let's say this is our D1VW001 sheet. Let's say that we want to do it actually for the next spool type. This actually becomes super easy because we can actually just take everything here, copy it from this sheet, put it into a new one. And what we're going to do is we're going to use that replace command again. And we're going to take our D1VW001s and we're going to make them D1VW002s. And we can actually just hit replace all. It's going to make 45 replacements. And in here, now we have all of our model codes and everything is still applicable because the only thing that's changed is our actual symbol type here. So when I come into our library manager, now I'm going to show you kind of the import command. So in here, we're going to go to our symbol view and we're going to find those symbols that are applicable. So we'll find our 001 series here. And it is linked to this symbol that or this model that I created earlier. I'm just going to remove that for now. And what we're going to do in this dropdown, there's this import model data and link option. So I'm going to select this and it's going to allow me to choose an Excel sheet within my system. So I'll find that Excel sheet that I've created. And what I've done is I have basically done that whole process and I filled everything in. And I've done it for the D1VW001 series, the 002, the 4, and the 6. And those are the 4 spool types that I have listed here. So I could come in and I could say, okay, I want the 001s applied to this one. And I can add new models. And the great thing about the way we have this import command set up is if I were, let's say, I filled in the incorrect seal type or the wrong voltage, we could keep this Excel sheet and we could update the models. And we could just use this update existing symbols or existing models, sorry. And it would overwrite any mistakes that we had made. So it's great to just kind of keep these on hand. Honestly, I think the Excel sheet is a great kind of a basic an intern project, and then you can create this. That way, it is something you could use later on and update your library very easily. So if we just hit next, we're going to say my data has headers, so that way we know what we're actually bringing in, and then we're going to select all of these. So these are all linked to our component type. Now, if you ever have a property that is not linked to the component type, it is going to yell at you. So you'll just have to go in and you'll have to add that, or it's going to ask that you ignore it for each model that you bring in. But these have all been linked to our directional control valve type. So we'll hit next. And now it's going to ask, do you want to map anything? And so because I've entered everything as pretty much the name of the property, it all comes in with a one-to-one matching. So I don't really have to map anything. It's all pretty much done for me. So it's got some intelligence. So we'll hit next. And now it's going to tabulate everything. And it's going to allow me to choose which models I actually want to bring into my library. And so now I have, 45 different models, all linked to this symbol, and I could use the import command. I just hit Control A to select everything, and I select import. Didn't add the seal type. So let me hold the escape key, and then I'll go add the seal type real quick to our component type here. It's very quick and easy. Seal type. Save. The GoToMeeting interface keeps interjecting in the top right there. So I can use that import command, and I'll just breeze through this real quick. We'll hit next. And we'll pick up where we left off before I had to add that property. I thought I had them all, but looks like, well, I didn't, but it's okay. Now you guys get to see the full process. We'll do a Control A and we'll import. We'll select yes. So now it's adding all 45 different model codes directly to that single symbol. And so you'll notice the green check marks. That just means that the import was successful and everything's good to go. Sometimes there will be like a little yellow exclamation point or something. Just select it again and run the import command. Usually it's just because Access or SQL, sometimes it just has a hiccup. So it just needs to try again. It's trying its best. So we'll close this. And now when I select this symbol, I have all of these different models up here. So I can actually come in here and I can, see all of the information that's in here. And I can do the same thing for, the D1V002, or what's great about this is I also have a non-stackable valve that I could use the same information for. So if I come into that non-stackable valve and I select it, I could choose to link an existing model, and all of the models that are linked to that component type will show up. So I could do a search for D1VW001, and all of these are now those models that I imported. So I could do a Control A, select OK, and now I have this model linked to all 45 of those models as well, this symbol. So we would basically go through and we would take that Excel sheet and we would apply it for each sheet to each symbol, and then we would come back and do the non-stackables as well. And all of the properties are defined and everything, and this would be how we would build our library. This is the fastest way, in my opinion. At this point, we would actually go to what we call OPS, our project space. So we're actually going to the cloud now. So I am going to go ahead and log into our project space. So this is all on a web browser. And when I log into our project space, I have a library upload option. So this is kind of the data admin side. So while this loads, let me double check. We have any questions? Okay. If you guys have any questions at any point, of course, type it in the chat and we will be able to handle it. So at this point, this is where we upload our library. And so I have my users here as well. Right now, it's just me all by myself. But I could add all of my sales engineers, and they would be able to log in NetSkeme. It looks like through February 25th of next year, and they would be able to actually use this library that I'm about to upload. So I would just come in here, and because I was working in an Access database, I can come in and I could select my data, and I would select my data here, I would select upload. And then my symbols, it's thinking, upload. And then my symbols, I would come in here and I would come to my library. I would go into my symbol library and I would just select my hydraulic symbols because that is the name of this symbol library. It's called out right up here. So if you ever have any question on that, that's the one you want to use. Just upload that. And so what this is going to do is it's going to upload it and it's going to validate that basically the structure of the entire library is followed correctly and everything. And then it's going to allow me to pretty much review it in a review system. That way it makes sure, you know, I've got everything uploaded correctly and I can actually take a look at it. And then it'll publish it. So every time that a sales engineer would log in, they would actually be able to use this library. So I'm not going to show this entire process just because we are running a little short on time. So now I'm going to log into NetSkeme. I'm going to switch my hat here. I'm going to go from data admin and I'm going to switch over to our sales engineer now. And it's going to load. Okay. So let me make sure I'm in the right account. I believe I am. We're going to find out because the library should be here. So I actually did already upload the library so that I could just show you guys. So within our Library Explorer, this is completely on a web browser, like I mentioned. So I could be at a customer site. All I've got to do is log into their Wi-Fi and I could pull up my library and I could actually quickly create, you know, a schematic here. And I could say we bring in pump, be a motor, and we can actually do a search for like a D1VW. And I've got all of these models in here. So I did also upload the 002s, the 04s, and the 06s. So there is tons and tons of models in here, but I know that I want the 001. So I could do a search and I could say, let's say this one. I can drop this in, and when I right click this and I select edit, all of this information that I entered, including, you know, the weight, the seal type, the bolt shoulder height, all of that information is now available because I pulled it from my library. Now, if I show you based on the Fluid Power Tools library, if I bring in a non-stackable DO3 double spring centered, this is going to be pretty much the same geometry. However, the metadata fields that you're going to see are very limited. So for a Fluid Power Tools library, we just have a standard set of properties. Within a NetSkeme Enterprise library, you can actually set which properties and you can set your own values and everything. So this really helps your design engineers later on down the road. Let's say that, you know, a sales engineer puts this together. They say, you know, this is great. This is exactly what we want. Can we, you know, get this to the design? Can we get this to the design engineers, really get this moving along? The answer is yes, because you're going to have all of this stuff pretty much there. And all they have to do is download this. Let me finish this up a little bit, make it a little pretty. So they could quickly throw something together. And let's say that this is our reservoir down here. And we could say that there's an actuator up here. And all they have to do at this point to get it to the design engineers, they could just download this as a DWG. And this can go directly into HyDraw. So if I select open here, it looks like I have HyDraw open. So it's going to open this. And now my design engineers can actually take this and they can put this into a design process. And so I can take this and all of that metadata flows through. They can create a bill of materials that is specific to our parts here. So if I select our parts list, and in here I've actually already kind of made this so that we have the seal type and the cavity footprint interface. we could insert this into our drawing and really kind of expedite this engineering process. It's a little ugly, but we pull it out here. We have our seal type, our cavity footprint interface. Everything gets kind of pulled in. Now in NetSkeme, this bill of materials customization we don't have as of now. If I create the parts list in NetSkeme, it's just going to create it based on a basis, the ISO standard. So we just have like the description, model code, and manufacturer. But your design engineers with HyDraw can easily create that as they need. Okay, so I think I see. I think I see a question in here. As we are using a SQL database for our HyDraw, what options do I have to transfer my data to NetSkeme? So SQL is supported. If you do have a SQL database with your HyDraw library, of course, that can be uploaded and that can be utilized for your sales engineers. Will the HyDraw Library Manager be the main tool for maintenance, or will the web interface have all the required options? So right now it's just the HyDraw Library Manager. So we are looking at possibly maybe something in the future to have something on the web, but right now we just have the HyDraw Library Manager. So that is kind of our basis, our tool. Okay, I think I've ran a little bit over, so I will hand it back off to John and sign off. Oops. John, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. Turn on the webcam doesn't unmute me. So yeah, thanks for all the questions. If you did not have your question answered, we'll try to answer those right away offline, but if something comes up later, you can always submit those to us. Just send them to support@bestusa.com and we'll answer those as quickly as we can. So I do want to thank Frank for delivering today's product application demonstration. He's got the webinar series shown up here. So we'd be grateful if you can complete a short survey at the conclusion of today's webinar. Also tomorrow you'll receive an email containing a link to view. Also, to our view video segments from prior webinars will be provided in that same email. So, so as Frank is showing there, this is the webinar series we've just concluded. We invite you to join social media channels and you'll get an update on those. We'll also be sending out emails on upcoming webinars as well. So this concludes our winter 2024 webinar series, and an announcement on the spring webinar series will be issued in the sometime in the month of March, and it will resume webinars in the May and June timeframe. So thank you again, Frank, and thanks to all for attending today's session. We wish you a pleasant and safe day, and we look forward to your feedback on future webinar topics, which can conveniently be reflected in the survey if you take that, which will launch shortly. Again, thank you very much. Have a pleasant day.